I want you to picture something for a second. Close your eyes if you have to, unless you're driving, obviously. Just imagine a really loud, high-energy pop punk anthem.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Right. You know the kind I'm talking about. Driving electric guitars, heavy, chaotic drums, the kind of track that just makes you want to jump around in a mosh pit.
Or scream the lyrics at the top of your lungs on the highway.
Exactly. It's got that specific angst, that kinetic energy that just pushes you forward. So do you have that sound in your head?
I can hear it perfectly. It's loud, it's chaotic, and usually it's pretty cathartic. It's the kind of music you put on when you really need to let off some steam.
Right. Now here is the curveball. What if I told you that this song, this absolute banger of a track, is actually a clinically accurate roadmap for trauma recovery, somatic healing, and nervous system regulation?
Well, that's quite the contradiction. Usually when we talk about clinical psychology or trauma recovery, we're picturing quiet rooms, soft voices.
Maybe some ambient whale sounds in the background?
Exactly. Ambient whale sounds. We definitely aren't picturing power chords and distortion.
It feels like those two things shouldn't go together at all, but that is exactly what we are unpacking today. We're doing a deep dive into a track called New Age by the artist Ti-Fi.
And it really is a fascinating piece of work.
It is. Now, on the surface, this is just a massive alternative rock anthem. It's got the hooks, it's got the energy, but the artist herself describes it as stripping away the production to get down to the bones of the music. And those bones, according to the research we've pulled, they map directly onto some pretty heavy psychological theory.
And that is what makes this deep dive so interesting to me. We aren't just doing a standard music review here. We're using these lyrics as a framework to explore some really complex concepts.
Things like dissociation, right?
Yes, dissociation, the physiological freeze response, and the incredibly difficult concept of radical acceptance.
It's basically a therapy session set to 180 beats per minute. I'm so fascinated by this because I love finding meaning in pop culture, but this feels less like a hidden meaning and more like a literal instruction manual for survival that just happens to be catchy.
It really does.
But I do have to ask, can a 3-minute rock song actually capture the complexity of something as deep as somatic healing? That seems like a really tall order.
That is the big question, isn't it? Because trauma is incredibly complex. But what's so interesting about music is that it bypasses the logical brain entirely.
You mean the prefrontal cortex?
Right, the prefrontal cortex. Music bypasses that and hits the emotional center directly. So, while a textbook can explain the science of recovery, a song like this might actually demonstrate the feeling of it. Let's see if we can bridge that gap between the art and the science today.
Okay, let's get right into the lyrics. The song opens with a verse that sets the scene immediately, but it's an internal scene. The line is, "I've been living in a body that felt like a cage, just a ghost in the hallway."
A body that felt like a cage. I mean, that is an incredibly potent image right out of the gate.
It's so visceral. To me, cage implies you're trapped, obviously, but ghost in the hallway feels different. It feels like absence, like you aren't really there.
Precisely. And if we look at the source material regarding the artist's own breakdown, she's not just using these words as poetic metaphors for being sad.
Right.
She is describing a very specific biological trauma response known as dissociation.
Which is a word we hear a lot lately, especially on social media. People say they're dissociating when they just zone out in a boring meeting. But clinically, what is actually happening when someone dissociates in the context of real trauma?
So imagine your nervous system is a circuit breaker in a house. When you are overwhelmed by chronic stress or a specific traumatic event, the system surges with way too much energy.
It overloads.
Exactly. And if you can't fight the threat, and you can't run away from it, if fight or flight just aren't viable options, the body has a third option. It trips the breaker. It literally decides the only way to survive the pain is to check out.
So it disconnects the conscious mind from the physical experience.
It severs the connection to the physical form, because the physical form is where the pain is happening. The body becomes a place of unsafety. It stops feeling like a home and starts feeling like a cage you're trapped inside.
Wow.
You become that ghost in the hallway. You are present, your eyes are open, maybe you're even walking and talking to people, but you aren't really inhabiting the space. You're watching yourself from a distance.
That sounds absolutely terrifying, honestly, to be a passenger in your own body like that.
It is terrifying. And it connects perfectly to the very next line in the verse. A story I didn't write, a fire I didn't start. That feeling of being a ghost, just watching things happen to you.
That really speaks to a total lack of control, right? I didn't write this.
Yes, it touches on a core psychological concept called the locus of control. In a healthy mental state, we usually operate with an internal locus of control. We believe we make choices, and we affect our outcomes.
Like, I studied hard, so I got an A.
Or, I practiced, so I got better.
Exactly. But trauma flips that.
Trauma shatters it entirely. It shifts you to an external locus of control. The fire you didn't start represents the event that happened to you. Suddenly, you aren't the author of your life anymore. You're just a passive observer to whom life is happening. You lose that sense of agency, of being the driver.
You basically feel like an NPC, a non-player character in your own video game.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it.
And the physical toll of that isn't just mental. The song lays it out in the next line, which I think is something a lot of people actually do without even realizing it. Holding my breath just to keep from falling apart.
That line is the physiological reality of the freeze response.
Is it literal? She doesn't just mean like waiting for bad news.
Oh, it is quite literal. When a person is stuck in that deep survival mode, their actual breathing pattern changes. It becomes shallow, held high up in the chest. Think about nature for a second. If you are hiding from a predator in the bushes, what do?
You hold your breath so you don't make a sound. You freeze.
You become a statue. But here is the problem. In nature, once the predator leaves, the animal physically shakes it off. They literally shake their bodies to discharge that pent-up nervous energy.
But humans don't do that.
No, humans don't shake it off, we hold it. Survivors of trauma often walk around for years with their intercostal muscles braced for an impact that already happened a decade ago. They are physically holding their psyche together with muscle tension.
That makes so much sense. It explains why people with high anxiety are just physically exhausted all the time, even if they haven't done anything physically demanding that day.
Oh, absolutely. It's an immense energy drain. You are burning calories just to stay static, just to keep the pieces from scattering. You are essentially running a marathon internally while sitting perfectly still on the couch.
But the song doesn't stay in that freeze state forever. And this is where the New Age concept really starts to bleed in. The music shifts in the pre-chorus. It gets a bit more rhythmic, a bit more driving. The lyrics say, the static is breaking, trading the then for the right here.
This is the critical pivot point. We are moving from the trauma response into the actual healing mechanism.
Trading the then for the right here. I mean, that sounds simple on paper, just be present, right? But I imagine it's incredibly hard to do in practice when your brain is just screaming at you.
It is the hardest thing in the world to do when your brain is hardwired for danger. What she's describing here is a technique called grounding. You see, the primitive part of our brain, the amygdala, the alarm system, is completely timeless. It doesn't own a clock.
So it doesn't know the difference between past and present.
It really can't tell the difference between a scary memory from 10 years ago and a tiger standing right in front of you right now.
Yeah.
It fundamentally believes the then is happening right here.
So the static she mentions, that noise in your head, is literally the past invading the present moment.
Correct. It's a glitch in the timeline. Grounding is the deliberate, conscious effort to anchor the brain in reality. To look around and say, I am here. I am sitting in a chair. The walls are blue. It is 2026, not 2015. It forces the brain to update its software to the current moment.
And Ti-Fi actually gives us real instructions on how to do that right in the song. This part really stood out to me because it's so specific. She sings, unclenching my fists, I'm letting the air back in.
And here is where we get into the crucial difference between cognitive therapy like traditional talk therapy and somatic healing.
Somatic meaning of the body, right?
Yes. The expert commentary in our source stack strongly suggests that you cannot just think your way out of a trauma loop. You can't just tell yourself logically, I'm safe, if your body is screaming danger. The body is always louder than the mind. You have to involve the physical vessel to change the signal.
So unclenching the fists isn't just a symbolic metaphor for letting go of anger?
Not at all. It's a biological signal. Think about it. When you are in danger, you clench. You protect your vital organs, you prepare to punch or to run. When you deliberately unclench your hands and take a deep diaphragmatic breath letting the air back in, you are directly stimulating the vagus nerve.
Ugh, the vagus nerve. We see this term everywhere now in wellness circles. Social media is obsessed with it. Can we demystify that a bit? What does it actually do?
It's not magic, it's just biology. Think of the vagus nerve as the brake pedal for your stress system. It connects the brain down to the heart, the lungs, and the gut. When you breathe slowly and deeply, specifically extending your exhale, you are sending a reverse signal up that nerve to the brain.
Like a status update.
Exactly. You are saying, hey, brain, we wouldn't be breathing this slowly and calmly if a tiger were chasing us. Therefore, we must be safe.
So you're basically hacking your own operating system. You're using the body to convince the brain.
That's exactly it. You are manually overriding the fight-or-flight response.
Yeah.
You're forcing the system to stand down. It's bottom-up processing instead of top-down.
That is incredibly empowering because it's a tool you carry with you everywhere. And then once you've calmed the system down, the song moves to this idea of shedding that second skin.
The second skin being the armor.
The armor we built to survive the trauma.
Right. And I want to be very clear here, and the lyrics imply this too. We shouldn't hate the armor. It is so important to honor it. That armor, that emotional distance, that numbness, it kept you alive when you were at your most vulnerable. It did its job.
Right.
But as the source material points out, you cannot wear a suit of plate armor to the dinner table.
It would make it pretty hard to hug someone, or even just to sit and relax.
Exactly. You can't connect with people through steel. The armor that saves you eventually begins to suffocate you. Keeps the bad stuff out, sure, but it keeps the good stuff out too.
Yeah.
To truly live rather than just survive, you eventually have to take the armor off.
Which leads us right to the explosion of the chorus. The music swells, the production gets huge, there are these massive background shouts of, hey! It just feels so massive. And the main line is, to be whole, to be loud.
That is the sound of liberation.
Why loud, though? Why is that the specific word choice there? Why not happy or free?
Think about what trauma teaches a person, especially childhood trauma or long-term abuse. It teaches you to be very small, to be quiet, to be compliant. The logic is, if you are invisible, you are safe. If you don't make noise, you don't attract the predator.
So being loud is inherently dangerous to that mindset.
To the traumatized brain, yes. Being loud feels like painting a giant target on your back. But in recovery, being loud is an act of rebellion. It is a conscious, deliberate rebuilding of the self. To say I will be loud is to say I will take up space. It is defying the training that told you to shrink.
And that's the new age she's talking about in the title.
Yes. And there is a nuance here I really appreciate in the lyrics. The new age isn't a reset button. It's not about going back to who you were before the bad things happened.
Because that person doesn't really exist anymore.
Right. That before version of you is gone. You can't unexperience the experience. This is what psychologists call post-traumatic growth. It's the forging of a completely new identity that incorporates the history but isn't defined by it. You aren't fixed back to the original factory settings. You are upgraded.
I love that. Upgraded.
And the lyric, "The sun is hitting the stage," is beautiful here too. It connects directly to exposure therapy.
Exposure therapy, like facing your fears.
In a way, yes. It's stepping out of the shadows, the wings of the stage, and letting the light actually hit you, letting yourself be seen. And the therapy part is realizing that you survive being seen. The world doesn't end. The catastrophe your brain is expecting just doesn't happen.
Stepping into the spotlight of your own life. But the song doesn't pretend everything is just perfect immediately. In the second verse, we get this really intense, jittery description of what life was like before the breakthrough. The line is, I used to check every corner, I used to count every door.
Anyone listening who has PTSD or high anxiety will recognize that behavior immediately. It's hypervigilance.
Counting every door. I mean, I've done that. Entering a restaurant and immediately spotting the exit signs. Or needing to sit in the booth where I can see the whole room. It feels like you're just being prepared.
It feels like preparedness. It feels like being smart. But it's actually a relentless safety scan. Your brain is constantly mapping the environment for threats. But think about the cognitive load of doing that constantly. Imagine your brain is a computer. If 40% of your processing power is continuously dedicated to tracking escape routes and analyzing everyone's microexpressions for signs of anger,
You just don't have much RAM left for the actual conversation you're having.
or for joy, or for really tasting your food, or for laughing at a joke, it's exhausting. It leaves very little room for actual living. But look at the stark contrast in the next line of the song. Now I'm walking through the center of the room.
The center, not hugging the walls anymore.
Exactly. The perimeter's for safety. You can put your back to the wall so no one can sneak up on you. The center is completely exposed. Walking through the center of the room is a physical reclamation of safety. It is actively challenging the belief that the world is inherently dangerous. It's a small physical action, but it signifies a massive internal shift.
And then she says, it's not about the memory, it's about the reclaim.
This signals a major shift in the therapeutic process itself. Often we start with narrative therapy, hashing out the story, what happened, who did what. And that is incredibly important. You have to name the ghost. but there comes a point of diminishing returns.
Like, you can only tell the story so many times before it just becomes a script you're reciting.
Right. You can actually get stuck in the loop of the story, re-traumatizing yourself over and over. Eventually, the focus has to shift from the memory of the past to the agency of the future. Taking back my name, as the lyric goes, means redefining yourself on your own terms, not by the labels the trauma created for you. You are not the victim. You are not the damaged one. You are you.
Which brings us to the bridge. And honestly, this feels like the absolute emotional peak of the song for me. The artist says in her notes that these are the hardest pills to swallow in recovery.
Let's hear them.
The line is, "It wasn't my fault, but it's my life to live."
Oof, that is a heavy one.
It feels almost unfair, doesn't it? Like, it wasn't my fault. Okay, I get that. But it's my life to live feels like it's letting the person who caused the harm completely off the hook. It feels like saying, hey, someone burned down your house, but you have to buy all the materials and rebuild it yourself.
I completely understand that reaction. It feels deeply unfair because we have a very natural human desire for justice. We want the people who broke us to come back and fix us. We want the universe to balance the scales.
But they can't fix you.
They can't. And usually, they won't even try. This is what we call radical acceptance. It is not forgiveness. It is not saying what happened was okay or justified. It's the profound realization that healing is the survivor's responsibility, even though the damage was not their fault.
That is a really tough bill.
It is the toughest. But it is also the key to the cage. Because if you wait for the person who hurt you to apologize or to change or to heal you, you are giving them total control over your future. You are waiting at a bus stop for a bus that is never coming.
So it's my life to live is basically saying, I'm taking the keys back.
Exactly. I am going to drive this car, even if I didn't cause the crash. Taking ownership of the healing is the only way out. It's claiming your own life back from the event.
And she follows that up with a line that really expands the scope of what comes next. I've got so much more than survival to give.
This perfectly distinguishes between survival mode and self-actualization. When you are surviving, you are hoarding energy. You are just trying to make it to tomorrow. You are focused purely on essentials, safety, food, sleep.
You're just treading water.
Yes. But humans are built to do so much more than tread water. We are built to swim, to dive, to explore. Self-actualization is having the surplus capacity to dream, to create art, to build complex relationships, to help others. You simply cannot do that when your entire operating system is dedicated to just surviving the day. This line is a declaration that she wants to do more than just exist.
Then we get this next line, and I think this challenges a lot of what we hear, especially in the inspirational, quote, corners of the internet. I'm not just a victim. I'm not just the strong.
The binary trap.
We know why victim is a trap. It keeps you stuck in the past. But why is being the strong one a trap? I mean, everyone wants to be strong. We praise people for being resilient. We say, oh, look how strong she is. She overcame so much.
We do. Society loves a strong survivor. It makes the rest of us feel comfortable. But that label can become a cage of its very own.
How so?
If your core identity is the strong one, it implies you don't ever need help. It implies you can carry any weight without breaking. It leads to what we call performing resilience, acting tough for the comfort of others so they don't have to worry about you.
So you're not allowed to fall apart because it would bring character.
Exactly. And that is incredibly isolating. It prevents genuine connection because nobody sees the real you. They only see the superhero version. The goal of recovery isn't to be strong 24/7. The goal is to be human, to be a complex person who is valid even when they are messy or weak or falling apart. You do not have to be a superhero to be worthy of love and support.
That hits hard, and it leads to the final realization in the bridge. I'm the place where I finally belong.
This is the ultimate antidote to the homelessness of trauma.
Homelessness.
I don't mean physical homelessness, I mean emotional homelessness. Trauma makes us feel unsafe inside our own heads. We don't feel at home in our bodies because our bodies have been the actual site of the pain. So we look for safety in other people, in places, in jobs, sometimes in substances. We are constantly searching for a place to rest.
We're looking for a sanctuary outside of ourselves.
Right. Recovery is realizing that true safety is cultivated internally. You become your own sanctuary. You stop running from yourself and realize, I am the home I was looking for. I am the safe place. I can trust myself to take care of me.
That is just beautiful. And then the song goes back into that massive chorus. This is my new age. It feels like a victory lap. It feels triumphant.
It absolutely is. But I also want to point out the outro. The source material highlights a very important nuance here that prevents this from just being toxic positivity. The artist says, the static might come back.
Yeah, she specifically mentions that the New Age isn't about being perfect.
It's about having the tools. Healing isn't a straight line where you cross a finish line and just never feel sad or scared ever again. That's a myth. The static will come back. Stress happens. Life happens. Triggers happen.
But the difference is,
The difference is that now you know what to do. You know how to unclench your fists. You know how to trigger that vagus nerve. You know how to feel your feet on the floor. You aren't helpless anymore. You have a manual.
it's a sonic representation of a breakthrough. It's wild to think all of this is packed into a 3-minute pop-punk track. It really recontextualizes the whole genre for me.
Like I said at the beginning, music bypasses the logical brain. Sometimes you can learn more from a song than a textbook because you feel the truth of it before you even understand the words. It gives you the emotional blueprint. It lets you practice the feeling of triumph before you might actually feel it in your daily life.
So what does this all mean for you listening today? We've looked at the lyrics, the science, the biology, we've unpacked the freeze response and the vagus nerve.
I think the main takeaway is that we need to completely redefine what healing looks like. It's not about erasing the past or forgetting the fire you didn't start. It's about changing your relationship to your own body and your own story. It's about moving from being a ghost in the hallway to walking right through the center of the room.
And maybe rethinking what bravery actually is.
Yes, we live in a world that is completely obsessed with staying strong. But maybe the bravest thing you can do is refuse to perform that strength.
Refuse to perform and just be loud.
To be loud, to take up space, to admit that you are hurt, and to decide to heal anyway. To walk through the center of the room, not because you aren't scared, fear is completely normal, but because you refuse to live in the corners anymore.
I love that. And there's one final thought I want to leave you with, building on everything we've talked about. We've focused a lot on the internal, individual experience of the song. But think about the context of pop-punk music. Think about a live concert. You have thousands of people all jumping together, breathing heavily together, unclenching their fists and screaming the same lyrics. It's not just an individual healing manual.
Yeah.
That kind of concert is basically massive collective somatic therapy. You are regulating your vagus nerve alongside thousands of other people.
A giant shared sigh of relief. That's a really powerful image.
It really is. Well, that's our deep dive on Ti-Fi's New Age. I am definitely going to listen to it with a completely different set of ears now.
It's definitely worth a listen on good headphones. Breathe through it. See if you can unclench your fists while you listen.
Will do. Thanks for unpacking this with me.
Always a pleasure.
And thank you for listening. We'll catch you in the next deep dive.